Two single mothers. One parking spot. One street. One day. And two identical tickets that somehow turned into weeks of anger. This wasn't normal. Same location. Same violation. Same $75 fine. Both women blaming each other. And both writing letter after letter to the court, convinced the other one was responsible. Judge Caprio had seen thousands of cases like this, but experience had taught him one thing. When people fight this hard over $75, it's never really about the money. There's always a deeper story hiding underneath. Carmen Lucia Rivera stood on the left, arms crossed, jaw locked, eyes fixed straight ahead. Shannon Marie O'Brien stood on the right, looking down at her hands, shaking her head as if she couldn't believe she'd ended up here. They wouldn't even look at each other. And that told the judge everything he needed to know before either of them spoke. The facts were simple. October 15th, 2024. Hope Street, between 4th and 5th. 2-hour parking limit. Rivera's ticket issued at 11:17 a.m. O'Brien's at 1:32 p.m. Same spot. Same rule. Same fine. Different lives colliding in the same space. When Rivera finally spoke, the exhaustion showed before the words did. She was wearing hospital scrubs beneath her jacket, clearly coming from or heading to work. She explained she worked at Rhode Island Hospital as a patient care aide. Her shift started early. She parked at 7:15 that morning, believing she was within the rules because the sign said 2-hour parking began at 8 a.m. She thought she was safe. She thought she'd done everything right, and standing there, listening, it became clear this wasn't about parking at all. It was about fatigue, pressure, long hours, single motherhood, and how small mistakes feel massive when life already feels heavy. Two mothers. Same struggle, same street, same ticket, and a conflict that was never really about $75. What Rivera believed wasn't necessarily correct, but it was reasonable. She didn't return to her car until 11:30 that morning because an emergency exploded inside the hospital. Short staffing, critical patients, no option to walk away. When someone is coding, you don't abandon them to move a car. By the time she got back, the ticket was already there, issued at 11:17 a.m. $75. Final that's when something stuck in her mind. The car parked next to Hayes didn't have a ticket yet. She assumed that car was the reason enforcement came at all. In her exhaustion, it felt logical. She hadn't been ticketed there before. Someone must have complained. Someone must have caused this. Not because she reported anyone. She didn't. But because anger needs a target when you're too tired to absorb another hit, and $75 mattered. Not symbolically. Literally, Rivera worked 2 jobs. Hospital mornings, cleaning shifts at night. 60 hours a week. About $2,800 a month after taxes. A son at home she barely saw awake. A neighbor who watched him out of kindness more than pay. A grandmother in Puerto Rico she still sent money to after Hurricane Maria wiped out everything her family had. For her, $75 wasn't a fine. It was groceries, childcare, rent balance, stability versus panic. She admitted the letters she wrote were angry. She admitted blaming the other driver wasn't fair. But she was exhausted, overwhelmed, and needed the pain to make sense. When life is already fragile, randomness feels unbearable. Then came O'Brien's side, different background. Same fatigue, same weight behind her eyes. She parked for a dentist appointment. 2-hour limit. She thought she was safe. When she came back, there was a ticket waiting. And she, too, noticed the other car, already ticketed when she arrived. To her, that meant enforcement had already passed. She believed she had time. When she didn't, frustration turned outward. Maybe that other car drew attention. Maybe without it, the officer never would have come at all. 2 women. 2 single mothers. 2 separate lives grinding them down in different ways. Both stretched thin. Both blindsided by the same fine. Both searching for control in a moment where they had none. And so they blamed each other, not out of cruelty, but because stress looks for somewhere to land. This was never about parking. It was about survival colliding on the same street. When O'Brien explained what $75 meant to her, the weight finally showed. She had buried both parents within 2 years. Heart attack, cancer, no siblings, no nearby family. Then came the divorce, an affair, a husband who moved on and showed up for his child only when it suited him. Child support arrived late, or not at all. Before everything fell apart, she had stability. 8 years at an insurance company, a real salary, benefits, a future that made sense. Then COVID erased it. Downsizing, layoffs, nothing comparable ever came back. Now she worked remote customer service for hourly pay, no benefits, unpredictable hours, earning less than half of what she once did, raising a child alone. Different life than Rivera's. Same exhaustion, same fear. $75 wasn't abstract. It was electricity, groceries, medication for a daughter with asthma. Some months it meant choosing which bill would wait and which one couldn't. The anger in her letters wasn't about parking. It was grief with nowhere to go. A life that kept shrinking no matter how hard she worked. She blamed the other car because pain looks for face. Two women. Same block. Same day. Same fine. Both blaming each other. But the paperwork told a quieter truth. Same officer. Same route. Same routine. One ticket in the late morning. Another in the early afternoon. A block patrolled twice daily like clockwork for years. No complaint. No call. No betrayal. Just timing. Nothing either woman did caused the other's ticket. Weeks of anger collapsed in an instant. The realization landed hard. All that blame. All that stress. All that fighting. And there was no enemy. Just bad luck. Two exhausted mothers caught in the same storm. And that's when the real cost became clear. Rivera barely saw her son. She left before he woke up. Came home just long enough to breathe before leaving again. Returned at night to a sleeping child. On weekends, exhaustion stole even more time. Love was traded silently. One toy dinosaur left on a pillow, passed back and forth because words didn't fit into their schedule. She had no safety net. No backup. Just endurance. Sometimes people fight each other because they're too tired to fight life itself. Sometimes the conflict isn't personal at all. It's survival grinding people down until they turn on the nearest face. Both women were doing it alone. Miguel's father was gone. Rivera's family was still in Puerto Rico. No backup. No safety net. Just long days, short nights, and responsibility that never paused. O'Brien's reality mirrored it. Her parents were gone. Her marriage was over. No siblings. No relatives nearby. Just her and an 8-year-old daughter who loved art, talked non-stop, and deserved more than her mother could afford. O'Brien worked from home to be present. But presence didn't mean availability. Customer service calls filled her afternoons while her daughter sat quietly doing homework alone. Not because she didn't care, but because survival demanded attention. The lights had to stay on. When asked who helped them, both answers were identical. Nobody. Same exhaustion. Same fear. Same loneliness. They lived 4 blocks apart and had never met. Then the details aligned. Same neighborhood. Same elementary school. Their children crossed paths every day while the mothers stood separated by stress and resentment. The children already knew each other. Shared lunches. Shared kindness. Cookies exchanged without calculation. The anger that filled the courtroom dissolved under that realization. The conflict hadn't been personal. It had been proximity without connection. 2 women fighting shadows while their children quietly showed them another way. The tickets were dismissed. That part was simple. What mattered was what remained after the paperwork disappeared. The possibility that neither of them had to keep doing everything alone. That the person once blamed might be the closest lifeline. That community doesn't always arrive as family. It sometimes stands 4 blocks away, unseen, until exhaustion finally lifts just enough to look. They didn't enter as enemies. They entered as strangers crushed by life. And they left seeing each other for the first time. They weren't enemies. They were the same. 2 exhausted mothers standing on opposite sides of a problem that was never really about parking. When they finally looked at each other, the fight collapsed. What replaced it wasn't anger. It was recognition. Right there, without orders or paperwork, they began rebuilding what exhaustion had taken from them. Rides shared. Time shared. Help offered without pride or guilt. Not a legal agreement. Just survival turning into cooperation. Then something rare happened. The blame dissolved. Apologies came freely. Not out of obligation, but relief. The kind that only comes when someone finally understands why you broke. Tears followed. Then arms. Two strangers who walked in ready to fight held each other like they'd been waiting for permission to stop struggling alone. Numbers were exchanged. Plans were made. Not someday, today. That moment reminded the room what justice can be. Not punishment, not paperwork, but connection. A place where people don't just resolve disputes. They build something better. After decades in the courtroom, one truth remains clear. Most people aren't cruel or careless. They are tired. They are scared. They are doing everything they can not to fall apart. And when people are drowning, they sometimes grab the nearest person, not to hurt them, but to survive. The real solution isn't blame, but it's seeing each other. They weren't enemies anymore. That alone mattered. Whether they would become friends was uncertain. But the war between them had ended. And sometimes that is enough to change everything. Two parking tickets, $75 each, had brought them there. But that wasn't what they walked away with. They left carrying something far more valuable. Relief, support, and the knowledge that they didn't have to face life alone anymore. They walked out together, side by side, still talking, still figuring things out. After they were gone, the room stayed quiet for a moment. Cases don't usually end like that. Most people pay or walk away and disappear forever. But this one felt different. Months later, a letter arrived. Two names signed at the bottom. Written together. Life after that day had been awkward at first. Coffee conversations, cautious words, shared stories about children. Slowly, trust formed. Then a system. Morning rides. Afternoon pickups. Gas money split. Homework shared across a kitchen table. Simple dinners. Quiet help that changed everything. They weren't best friends. They didn't pretend to be. There was something better. Backup. The call you make when your child is sick and work won't wait. The soup dropped off without being asked. The understanding that doesn't require explanation. They came in ready to fight over money. They left with hope. With help. With someone who understood. That letter stayed close, kept where it could be reached on difficult days. A reminder of why this work matters. Not fines. Not tickets. Not verdicts. Connection. Humanity. Seeing past anger to the exhaustion underneath. Justice isn't punishment. It isn't revenge. It's people recognizing each other as human beings instead of obstacles. They arrived as strangers. They left as neighbors. And later, they became lifelines. That is why the work continues. Because sometimes people aren't cruel. They are drowning. And sometimes all it takes is the chance to look up and realize the person beside you isn't the enemy, but someone fighting the same fight. Look closely. You might be surprised what you see.